November 19th, Bill McCartney.
Climbing the ladder of success only works if your first objective is to be a success as God's man at home with your wife and family. In 1994, at the pinnacle of his coaching career, Bill McCartney had coached an undefeated football team, won a national championship, and helped launch a monumental men's ministry. Yet at the same time, Bill's marriage seemed to be scarcely fastened to reality. His next critical play was as a husband and father. As if running the football program at University of Colorado and taking the team to new heights and victories were not enough, Bill was a major force in starting the international men's ministry, which became Promise Keepers. At Promise Keepers events, tens of thousands of men gathered to be encouraged, to be better husbands, fathers, and men of God. The conferences across America became the largest events ever attended by men in America. Life's Back Seat, a place where Bill's wife Lindy had grown accustomed, was taking a toll on her emotionally and physically. Battling an eating disorder, she lost 80 pounds, rarely came out of her bedroom, and fought suicidal thoughts. I just felt like I was getting smaller and smaller. Bill, unaware of his wife's trauma, failed to practice at home what he had been teaching at those stadiums full of men. Lindy said he was like a plumber. A plumber never fixes anything at home. She said he's always out fixing everybody else's plumbing. I felt like God was the only one I could trust. But on most Sundays, Bill and Lindy sat in their customary seats in their home church and worshiped together. This particular Sunday, a guest preacher stood in the pulpit. He had a message that he said he considered to be the most important lesson he had learned in all of his years of preaching. Do you want to know whether a man has character or not? All you have to do is look at his wife's countenance, and everything he has invested or withheld will be in her face. She was sitting right next to me, Bill said. I turned and looked at my wife, and I did not see splendor. I saw torment. I did not see contentment. I saw anguish. And I tried to defend myself to myself, but I could not. That is really the reason I stepped out of coaching. I realized that before God, I was a man without character. Escorting my wounded wife out to the church parking lot, I began to pray about the timing of my resignation from the University of Colorado. On November 19, 1994, Mr. McCartney called a news conference, and with Lindy at his side, he announced his retirement from coaching to spend more time with his wife and family. In that brave moment, their healing began. What a real man does is he lays down his life for his wife, and that enables her to blossom and become everything she could be, Bill said. Whenever a man takes time to really listen and serve his wife, she blossoms like a flower. I did not always understand that.
Yeah, I have great superpowers. I'm as strong as like a radioactive ox. Stronger than a radioactive ox. But the one villain I could never defeat? Porn. Porn was my own personal kryptonite.
And it's something I've struggled with since I was a kid.
So if you want to know what life is like without porn, well then take the challenge to quit porn for 30 days. Just click the link below to get started.
In Ephesians 5, verses 23 through 25, God tells us, "For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her." If life slaps you in the face, how will you respond? Ignore it or change? Climbing the ladder of success only works if your first objective is to be a success as God's man at home with your wife and family.
Men, Chuck Stecker here. I'm the Executive Director of A Chosen Generation. It's a teaching ministry for intergenerational culture. And, it's November 19th. The story of Bill McCartney, former coach, national champion at the University of Colorado. It's a very significant story for me because on this date in 1994, when Bill stepped aside as the coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, when then he would become the president and run Promise Keepers as he had started. I was on staff at Promise Keepers. I had met Bill. I'd had the privilege of praying with that man and sitting with him. A lot of great things I could tell you about Bill, a lot of which is in this story, that when he looked at the countenance in his wife's face. There's another part of this story where God just kind of continually tells us something to make sure we get the message. And Bill would often tell the story of sitting at a Promise Keepers conference. And the speaker said, I want each of you and your wife to take a piece of paper, and on a scale of 1 to 10, I want you to write down how good your marriage is. Rate your marriage on a scale, 10 highest, 1 lowest. And Bill put down a 7 or 8. The boy wasn't doing bad. He happened to glance at Lindy's, and she wrote a 3. Now, the reason I tell you that is his story is a great story and a great decision and a tough one. But God is a confirming God, and he's going to tell us some things over and over again, as he did with Bill. And Bill, out of obedience, knew what he had to do. The real challenge for us today, men, is, has God been telling you something over and over about the countenance in your wife, her happiness, your children? It could be a number of things, couldn't it, that we could apply this same principle to. But I have to ask the question, has God been trying to get your attention to do something that is life-changing, that requires your obedience to step forward? Bill's was a big decision. He stepped down as the head football coach. It was a life-changing decision for Lindy, his wife, his children, and every one of them sharing that testimony because of his courage and his obedience. What is God calling you to and has been calling you to do? That's the real question. You're the only one that can answer that. But the next question is, are you going to be obedient? God bless you.